Anthem is the new shared world Destiny-style shooter from BioWare. BioWare is, of course, traditionally an RPG studio, so just how much of their heritage will come through in this live shared world shooter? Let's find out. My name's Mike Williams, this is Gareth Evans.
Hey.
So Anthem's going to be a pretty major new direction for BioWare, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and Anthem was shown off at E3 earlier in the month. It's actually due out on February 22nd, 2019 on the PS4, PC and Xbox One. And they showed off a demo of the game hands-on there. GameSpot played it and they called it an exciting new direction for BioWare. A quote from GameSpot's Alessandro Filari. While playing Anthem, I had to repeatedly remind myself that I was playing a BioWare game. With Anthem, we're seeing a major shift in what BioWare is capable of. Although it still exhibits some of the studio's role-playing pedigree, it's the vast online open world that sets Anthem apart.
Yeah, so it's definitely a new direction, it's definitely a new type of game, and I think that's one thing that fans of BioWare might be a little bit, they might have a question mark over. And from the previews I've read as well, from the games journalists and stuff, they have the same kind of question mark until they actually played it, but we'll get onto that in a bit. So BioWare are best known for RPGs like, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and before that, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, and Baldur's Gate, and that's where they come from. That's their kind of roots, classic role-playing games. People love them for that stuff, but Anthem or Anthem's game type is not what they love them for. They don't love them for being a shooter studio. Some people would argue that the shooting in like the original Mass Effect was actually terrible. Anthem is an online shared world shooter like The Division or Destiny. That is a different thing to a classic kind of RPG. Impressions of gameplay have compared it to Destiny as well, so it's not just like it sounds like Destiny. People are saying it plays like Destiny. You pick up missions in a hub world and you head out to shoot enemies that then have numbers popping out of them when you hit them. Even the sci-fi kind of ruined future type look and feel of it is kind of similar. Now you can co-op the game with 3 other players, and it is a multiplayer game. It's a big multiplayer online game, and BioWare's Mike Dara has talked a little bit about this, right? Just how exactly that's going to work.
And I think one of the things that came through in the promotion and marketing during E3 was that they were adamant that there is still a single player role-playing game in there, right? And this is the single player side of it, and then when you go out in the open world you do the multiplayer side of it. So when he was asked how that's going to work, like having this traditional single player role-playing game and mixed in with this open world multiplayer game, he says in a lot of multiplayer games things get diluted because you're mixing multiplayer and single player in the same areas. So their solution is what he calls our world, my story. And he goes on to say, when you're out in the open world, this is where other players get to play with you. This is a living shared world, whether there's weather or it's nighttime. What we're experiencing together. Everyone that's playing Anthem at a moment is seeing the same thing. But then when I finish my mission, I come back to the base, and a base like Fort Tarsis, and this is a single player experience. I turn in my rewards, talk to some characters, I experience the choices of my actions. This is where your story really lives and breathes.
So what I find really interesting about this is that the shared world area is the open world and your base is your own base, which is the kind of inverse of what you have in The Division and Destiny, where you go back to like bases or social areas that are full of other players, whereas the open world in The Division's case doesn't have any other players unless if you've matchmaked with them, or you're going into like the dark zone, which is specifically a PvP area, or in Destiny's case where there's just kind of a smattering of other players and it's not as busy as the social hub. So they've flipped that on its head, which is an interesting take.
It is, because they want to try and keep as much of the old BioWare in there as possible, that people recognise them for their RPG experiences and the connections that you can have with other players and choices that you make and that kind of thing, which you don't traditionally have in online games. Now this is an online only game, but they say you can play it solo. You can play it all solo. You can go out in the open world, do it solo. It'll be more challenging because you won't have people helping you out, but that's the way it is different. It reminds me a little bit of Monster Hunter World in a way.
There's a lot of games you can compare it to.
You go out in the open world and you can do it co-op, or you can just do it solo at the same time. So.
Try and take it down yourself. So here's some more details for you then. There are 4 classes of characters to choose from in the game. These are the Ranger, Colossus, Interceptor, or Storm classes. Now the classes are based around the Javelin exosuits that you wear, which have already drawn comparisons to Iron Man because of the way they look and handle. You're just kind of flying around the open world and stuff, and you're in this suit when you're going about your business type of thing. It's a very integral part of the game, and it determines the kind of class that you and the role that you play. Multiplayer gameplay involves exploring this open world, performing missions together, taking on kind of big raid style missions known as strongholds, which are the bigger, more challenging activities you can do. You can't explore each other's hub world together, as we've already covered, though you can access a shared hub where you can make changes to your character while performing missions and stuff. So there will be some kind of social hub there. There's both story and side missions in the open world of Anthem. The side missions are going to be tougher. They're going to be harder than the story missions, and you can repeat them to get extra rewards. Now, this kind of thing is like integral to this type of game. Just going out and taking on these different challenges, and those challenges will kind of rotate in and out of what you do, and that repeating stuff is kind of a big part of it. You can play all the content with players at any level, which is interesting. So lower level players will be scaled up. So there isn't a massive power gap between the players in the group, which I quite like the sound of. I quite like the sound of not having to make sure you're keeping pace with everyone else you're playing with. And you can do anything in Anthem with other players. Story missions, exploring, raiding strongholds. You can do it all. If you can do it, you can do it with other players.
That's right. It's important to note that there's no PvP in it too. So it's all PvE. And they do say that people are incentivized to play with the lower level players at the beginning, because they get rewards and achievements and stuff based on how you are mentoring younger like lower players and things like that. So it's like a feeling of inclusivity, how everyone's trying to get everyone to work together no matter what level. It's going to be this all-inclusive experience.
Casey Hudson recently said a little bit about this, is that right? Why they kind of went down this route of going PvE and no PvP, and why multiplayer is the
he didn't really answer it. He was asked it, but he said by doing PvE we can really expand the customization and progression and balance the world that way. Whatever that means.
As a Destiny player, and knowing the headaches that Bungie have had, that to me says it's easier. It's basically PvP complicates the hell out of it, because you've got to balance both things. Bungie have struggled. Their ambition was to make Destiny feel exactly the same in PvE and PvP. You've got the same character with the same guns, and you can take those guns into PvP. That's very difficult to pull off, as Bungie, the shooting game experts and veterans that they are, can't manage it.
Even manage that, and that is the game that a lot of people are comparing it to, because it looks like
of course,
Destiny,
it's compared everywhere. We right at the top of the video we compared it, and it's in all of the previews and stuff. It's kind of an unavoidable comparison, I would say. Some more details for you. There's a full-on loot system, which is again essential for this type of game. You've got to have loot. There's weapons and gear that have individual levels and tiers. Epic, legendary, rare. Again, no surprise. There's going to be no loot boxes. You will be able to purchase cosmetic upgrades with real cash though, so they're going to be straight microtransactions.
Yes.
And that was something that the EA have been keen to stress at the E3 this year. After Star Wars Battlefront 2.
We did a whole video on it.
We did indeed.
Lack of loot boxes and stuff.
Yeah. You can also find various Javelin mods and cosmetic options while exploring the world. There's a traditional leveling and XP system, so you gain a level, grow in power, and then you level up your character and your Javelin separately. So you've got the suit thing and your character thing to level up, so we don't know how that's going to work yet. And then in terms of end game activities, there's going to be dailies and weekly challenges. Again, crucial for this type of game. If you're going to do this faux MMO thing, you've got to have these kind of things in there to keep people logging in every week, to keep people checking in every Tuesday or whatever, whenever the hell they choose to update it every week. You know?
Exactly. And I think that's something that they're trying to embrace, and not just the multiplayer side of it, the single player side of it too. And this is one of the things that they could address, and Casey Hudson referred to, and the community's forums or whatever he's read, and the community around BioWare games in the past, what they've said is that they want more single player content in future that isn't just around some DLC or whatever. And this is one of the games where they're able to produce that, right? They can put single player content in there on the daily, and he says, something will happen in the world, some event will happen, some character will come back or something, and you might hear about it off Twitter or something when your friends might be playing it, and you might not have played the game for a while. And then you come back and you can experience all this new content. And again, not just the multiplayer side of it, it's the single player story side of things too. So I find that really interesting, because this is how they can lean into the traditional fans of the single player experience, and have that as a proposition for them to be able to just pay for the game outright, and then but have it as a service where it will also update.
Which
all the time.
Sounds a little bit like Hitman or something like that, where it's a single player type thing, and but you just get new stuff. There's new challenges and new events to take part in. Talking of the world and story and everything, Anthem takes place on a fictional artificial planet that was created by something called the Shapers using ancient technology. Now, they never finished the planet. They were stopped or they were interrupted somehow while working on it, because they just suddenly vanished and they left all of their tools. So it takes place on a giant abandoned sci-fi building site, essentially, and the tools will actually serve in the gameplay as well, so you can actually apparently cause widespread change to the planet and its ecosystem at any moment, which sounds very ambitious. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. It sounds awesome, actually. Players take on the role of a survivor on the planet who works as a freelancer salvaging ancient tech and building up their Javelin suit, and there's an enemy faction called the Dominion, which is a bit of a lame name, if you ask me.
God. This is one thing that I find in BioWare games, is that the enemies are just all generic, and they're all just bad guys for being bad guys' sake. There's like, what are their motivations? What are the reasons for doing it? They're just bad guys.
The Dominion. It's like young adult novel type stuff like that. Anyway, they're trying to. So the Dominion are trying to locate the lost Shaper technology, and they're obviously doing it for like nefarious purposes. They probably want to destroy the planet or some shit like that. That's usually how it goes. So that's the story and the setting. I should mention as well, you can actually, this is a note from earlier, you can actually swap your classes on the fly. So we were talking about those classes that you can actually change them on the fly.
You do actually have to go back to base to be able to change your javelin suit.
Yeah, but it's not
you're not locked into any sort of.
Yeah, so you can do whatever kind of role you want to do. You can change it in and out. So that's a big important gameplay detail I missed from earlier. That's it in terms of details. In terms of impressions, they're really surprisingly surprised by how happy they are with it and how exciting they find it. Like Polygon's already called it the best feeling BioWare game yet. PC Gamer agreed, saying combat and flying feel great and say it's got clear potential, but they did question if BioWare can realize it. But here's a good line from them that sums it up. This is from PC Gamer. I think it's safe to say that after playing it, we're all a lot more optimistic than we were. Anthem handles really well and the shooting is pretty satisfying, but these games live and die on their content, for lack of a better word, and right now it's impossible to know just how much content Anthem is going to have. So that's where they come in with the questioning, if they can actually pull it off. Kotaku said it's pretty fun and that they were surprised at just how good it was. Again, surprise. And as for the topic at hand, which is how BioWare-ish is it, how close to BioWare's heritage it is, here's a quote from John Warner, who was speaking to IGN. John Warner's the game director. He says, quote, "The base of our games has always been around stories, telling stories, characters, interesting adventures, and building compelling worlds. And there's a progression we went through as we learned how to do this." And he talks about how they went through Baldur's Gate, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, then they went 3D, proper 3D with Dragon Age and Mass Effect, then they did Dragon Age Inquisition and Andromeda, which are more open world type games, and then they also, of course, did the Old Republic, which was an MMO. You don't get more games as a service than that. And then he finishes off his quote saying this, "So you can kind of see the progression of where we're coming from. As we are thinking of Anthem, it wasn't just an exercise of what's a new IP, what's a new story or setting." They're looking at this as a new story, a new setting. It's like an arc, like a trajectory that they've been on, because they've been making these games from, single player routes like back in the day, like they were saying, and they went and made big 3D cinematic games, then they made open world games, and then they made an MMO, and they're just saying that it feels like a natural finish point for them, which I kind of buy that as an argument, because it does look like on paper like they're leading up to this type of thing, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense in the world of games as a service and recurring revenue opportunities. That's the way the business side of the industry is going. That fused with how RPG, traditional RPG game developers they are. This is how they've applied themselves to that.
Yeah, exactly. Here's why I'm optimistic about it, right? Destiny was an online shared world shooter with RPG elements made by Bungie, a studio that makes shooting games. Anthem is an online shared world shooter with RPG elements made by BioWare, a studio that makes role-playing games, and they've made an MMO. So they should be able to deliver the content and the quests and the storytelling and the characters. That's who they are. That's like in their DNA, and that's in their history. And that is all the things that people were complaining about in the original Destiny and still do for Destiny 2 a little bit. And everyone's coming out of this demo as well saying they're surprised by how good it feels to play, which for many is the main strength of Destiny. It just feels so satisfying to shoot aliens in the face. So the journalists and the impressions and the previews are saying it does, basically, it feels really good to play, which is Destiny's strength. And BioWare come from this strong RPG background of making great content, great stuff to do.
The fact that they're trying their hardest to push the fact that they are still BioWare, they're still doing an RPG side of it. That's what's attracted me to this game, and that's what will keep me. I mean, I'm not too fussed about the PvE multiplayer side of things. I'll try and do it solo if I will, but there's a lot for everyone here, I find. And like you said, this combination of like the satisfying combat with the traditional RPG thing, it's definitely got my interest now, whereas before this E3 and before this information came out, I was nonplussed.
Exactly. And you kind of hope as well that they can see the mistakes made by Bungie with Destiny and the Division as well to some extent, and learn from them as well, and they can bring all this RPG stuff to it, and they seem to have nailed the shooting and the feel of it, which is, all the signs are pointing to a strong showing anyway. So that's all we've got to talk about for Anthem and how BioWarey it's all going to feel. Let us know what you think about what you've seen so far at E3 from the gameplay demo and the impressions you've heard. Let us know down in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Should be another video on your screens right now if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.